What's going on, everybody? My name is Joe, better known as HuskyRhodes, and welcome to Icon. This show, myself, and Bionic Silverback Nate Slater are going to be chronicling one of the greatest performers in the history of professional wrestling. And the name of the show totally says it all. That's right, kids. We're talking about the Icon Sting. Now, for my first entry into the Icon series, I was wondering, what name is synonymous with Sting in WCW? Some people say Lex Luger, some people say Hulk Hogan, some people say Vader, some people even say Cactus Jack. Those names are great, but when I think of WCW Sting, I only think of one name, and that is the 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. These two had a feud that went on from the late 80s all the way to the very end of WCW. They even went on to wrestle in TNA back in 2011. Now, the TNA years will be discussed at a different time. I want to hit on a few of the greatest matches in the feud between Sting and Ric Flair. You ready, kids? Let's get it. The first match that I want to talk about is from March 27th of 1988. It is from the very first Clash of Champions pay-per-view. This match put Sting on the map. It's a 45-minute time limit draw that is a complete banger of a match. This match not only showed that Flair is one of the greatest of all time, but it showed the whole world that Sting could be a main event player and could easily hold the weight of that company on their back. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the early work of Sting in the NWA, I highly suggest going and searching this match out. It is an all-time classic. The next match I want to speak on is from July 7th of 1990. It's the Great American Bash, where Sting finally overcomes Ric Flair and becomes the NWA World Heavyweight Champion for the very first time. Now, if you go back to 1989, there was the Starrcade pay-per-view, which had a really interesting run because there was no titles on the line. Instead, there were two Iron Man tournaments. There was a singles and a tag. And the singles finals just so happened to be Sting and Ric Flair. Sting wins that match. He gets to go on to Wrestle War 1990 to wrestle Ric Flair for the NWA World title. Unfortunately, before Wrestle War, Sting got hurt and was out for months. He came back just before the summer, got some wins behind him, and then in July at the Great American Bash, he finally gets his hands on Ric Flair again and becomes, for the very first time, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Had nearly a 200-day run and dropped the belt to Ric Flair at a house show in 91. Now, if you want to see one of the most feel-good early 90s WCW moments of all time, check this one out. We'll go to Starrcade 1990 next. Now, technically on paper, this match is not Sting versus Ric Flair. It is Sting versus a mysterious masked person from his past, the Black Scorpion. Now, the feud itself was a little weird. I'll be upfront with you. A little goofy. But this match, this cage match at Starrcade 90, is amazing. With tons of interference. The Four Horsemen come in and start attacking Sting. The Steiner brothers Brian Pillman, Tom Zink, a few others come through, get the numbers back in Sting's favor. Sting finally gets his hands on that mask and goes, okay, I need to see who this is. Rips it off, and you see that shock of blonde hair completely covered in blood, and it's none other than the Nature Boy Ric Flair. This match was an all-time classic that you definitely need to look into. I will end it off this episode with two matches that I feel have big significance in the feud between Sting and Ric Flair, and also for World Championship Wrestling as a whole. These matches are the very first and the very last matches of WCW Monday Nitro. The first match taking place from the Mall of America. It's significant because, well, it's the very first Monday Night Nitro, and no one really knew how much of an impact this show was going to have. And just like Eric Bischoff loves to go on about, it beat WWE for over a year in the ratings. Like, that's a feat that no one thought would ever happen. And it did successfully for 83 weeks. And the March 26, 2001 was a bit more of a somber match because it's the final ever match in the history of WCW before the McMahons bought it. And it was, as a WCW kid growing up, it was a heartbreaking moment to see. But it could not have ended any other way than with the two that started it all, Sting and Ric Flair, closing out the last episode of Monday Nitro. Well, folks, that has been this episode of Icon. Please tune in next week, where Bionic Silverback Nate Slater adds another piece of history to the chronicled career of the Icon Sting. You can follow me on Instagram at @HuskyRhodes. Follow me on TikTok at HuskyRhodes912. Be good or be good at it, kids. We will catch you next time.